Jungkook and I were the textbook definition of a toxic, karmic relationship. I was intoxicated by his boy genius aura and relentless ambition, while he was addicted to my soft-spoken compliance and pretty face. 6 months into our relationship, I accidentally got pregnant. Without a second of hesitation, he told me to get rid of it. "Selena, we can always have kids later," he said, entirely unbothered. "This MBA fellowship in London is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. I can't pass it up." He told me to wait for him. He promised that once he made it big, he would come back and give me the grandest wedding imaginable. But as I stared at the 2 pink lines on the pregnancy test, it hit me like a ton of bricks. In his life, me and this baby would always come second to his career. I smiled, and I broke up with him on the spot. 5 years later, holding my son's hand at the hospital billing counter, I ran into Jungkook again. His brows knitted together as he stared at the little boy beside me. "How old is he?" "4. "He's yours." Jungkook let out a dry, cynical chuckle. "You were the one who walked away back then. I have a fiancé now. If you're looking to be my mistress." "I just want money," I cut him off smoothly. "I need to save my husband." Hearing that, the temperature in Jungkook's eyes plummeted. He looked me up and down, his gaze traveling from the frayed collar of my cheap sweater to the scuffed heels of my vintage boots, before finally landing on my bare, makeup-free face. The colorful butterfly clips I used to love putting in my hair were gone, replaced by a single, stretched-out black hair tie. His Adam's apple bobbed. A flicker of genuine heartache, one he probably didn't even realize he was showing, flashed across his face. "Selena, you used to be so obsessed with looking pretty. You used to buy new outfits every other week. You'd purge your entire closet before the season even ended." His voice dropped a fraction. "Have things really gotten this bad for you?" I squeezed little Leo's hand tighter. "I'm a mom now. Priorities change." I lowered my eyes, terrified to meet his gaze. I was afraid that if I looked at him, I wouldn't be able to stop myself from asking why he had been so cruel back then. From asking if he had ever thought about me after he left for London. From asking if he would feel even an ounce of regret if he knew that I had flown across the world while pregnant to find him, only to end up robbed, penniless, and sleeping on the streets of a foreign country. Jungkook's frown deepened. He pulled a black MX from his wallet and shoved it into my hand. "Go buy yourself some new clothes. And get the kids some toys." Right as he said that, a woman in a designer Dior dress walked over, waving a stack of medical reports. Her voice was sickeningly sweet. "Justin, babe, who's this?" I instinctively pulled Leo a step back. I hadn't known he had a fiancé, and I had absolutely no intention of causing drama in his current relationship. But Jungkook was blunt, my ex. He turned to the woman, his tone softening a bit. "Done with your checkup? Let's go grab dinner." He glanced back at me. "Come on, we'll give you a ride." Jungkook was still exactly the same, brutally transparent, never feeling the need to hide anything. Just like years ago, when he was out drinking with a female client until 2 a.m. I had called him crying hysterically, begging him to come home, and he had calmly replied, "I'm literally just working. Stop being so dramatic." He hadn't changed. As long as he felt there was nothing going on, he acted like he had nothing to hide. I was just about to decline the ride when Haley, his fiancée, enthusiastically grabbed my arm. "Oh, you must be his first love. Wow, you really are pretty." She scanned my outfit with a thinly veiled smirk. "But this sweater, it's seen better days, huh? Your husband doesn't even buy you new clothes?" Jungkook casually pulled her hand off me. "You'll probably be the same when you're a mom." Haley's face went pale. She stomped her foot playfully and hooked her arm through his, whining, "Jungkook." She turned back to me, faking a pout. "By the way, why didn't your husband come to the hospital with you?" Jungkook is just a bleeding heart. He sees a struggling mom and wants to help. "It's on our way, don't be shy." Her aggressive fake niceness backed me into a corner. I could only offer an awkward smile and get in the car. Leo and I sat in the back of the Range Rover. Haley sat shotgun. She kept leaning over to affectionately adjust Jungkook's cuffs, running her fingers through the ends of his hair. "Babe, look at these cufflinks, the silver is totally fading. People are gonna laugh at you in your board meetings. I bought you a new limited edition Rolex pair. We should swap them out later." Jungkook kept his eyes on the road, his tone indifferent. "I'm used to these. Nobody's staring at my wrists anyway." Haley wasn't letting it go. She pulled a velvet box out of her Hermes bag. "Your mom told me to take good care of you. Look, these will match your Tom Ford suit perfectly." She reached over to unclip his cufflink, but Jungkook suddenly raised his arm and swatted her hand away. I said no. Startled, Haley fumbled the box. The expensive new cufflink slipped out and fell into the gap between the seats. I stared at the cuff of Jungkook's shirt and felt the breath leave my lungs. Those were the cufflinks I gave him for Valentine's Day 5 years ago. A pair of simple silver cufflinks, engraved with the initials J and S. "Jungkook, they say if you wear the cufflinks I bought you, I get to hold your hand for the rest of your life." He had pinched my cheek, laughing at my superstition. "Where do you even come up with this stuff? It's just a piece of metal." But he had worn that piece of metal for 5 years. Even though the silver had tarnished, he had never taken them off. My heart skipped a beat, and my cheeks flushed hot against my will. I accidentally caught Jungkook's eyes in the rearview mirror and immediately looked away, my chest tight. Leo pointed a chubby finger at me. Mommy, why is your face so red? Panicking, I pulled his little hand down. It's just a little stuffy in the car, baby. Haley's eyes darted to the rearview mirror, her gaze instantly turning hostile. She deliberately leaned her head onto Jungkook's shoulder, raising her voice. Babe, look how cute Leo is. When our baby is born, do you think they'll be even cuter? Jungkook turned to look at her, genuinely surprised. You're pregnant? Before she could answer, the SUV pulled up to the curb outside my rundown apartment complex. I practically shoved the door open and hurried Leo out. Thank you for the ride. Have a good night. Jungkook stepped out of the driver's seat. He walked around the hood and pressed that black Amex back into my palm. Keep the card. Buy the kid some toys. Don't let him feel left out. I opened my mouth to refuse, but he cut me off. Didn't you say you wanted money? We'll need a way to stay in contact, will we? I clenched my fist around the plastic. He was right. I needed money. I needed a lot of money. For Chris, I couldn't afford to let my pride win. Back when we were dating, I used to throw fits, begging Jungkook to hard launch us on Instagram and post pictures of us together. When he refused, I would cry for days, accusing him of not loving me enough. Looking back, he was probably right to keep things quiet. When we got upstairs, Leo tugged on my hand, looking up with big eyes. Mommy, can we FaceTime Daddy? I miss him. Seeing the longing in my son's eyes, I nodded. My husband, Chris, had been diagnosed with an incredibly rare blood disease. Between the bone marrow transplant and the post-op care, the medical bills were going to hit $500,000. 5 years ago, completely ignoring all logic, I had flown to London pregnant to find Jungkook. I ended up stranded, robbed of my purse and passport, and sleeping in a tube station. Chris, an American med student doing his residency there, had found me and saved my life. Even knowing I was pregnant with another man's child, he married me without a second thought. He gave me and my baby a real home. Over the past few years, he poured every ounce of his soul into Leo and me. He worked grueling hospital shifts, bought us a beautiful little house in the suburbs, and built a perfect life for us back in the States. But fate played a cruel joke on us. He collapsed one day at work. Even after emptying our entire life savings, we were still hundreds of thousands of dollars short for his treatment. When I was at my absolute lowest, Chris had been my savior. I absolutely refused to give up on him now. Leo babbled happily with Chris on the iPad for a while before finally drifting off to sleep. I had just tucked him into bed when the doorbell rang. Jungkook was standing in the hallway, carrying massive shopping bags filled with expensive Lego sets, action figures, and imported snacks. He walked right past me, his eyes scanning my cramped, dingy living room. His frown deepened. Did you just move back here? I nodded. Where were you living before? I don't want to talk about it. I turned my back to him, unable to meet his eyes. Jungkook, I didn't come back to beg for a second chance. I took a deep breath. You know how expensive it is to raise a child in this economy. I'm not going to interfere with your new family. I just want a one-time lump sum child support buyout. Hearing that, Jungkook's jaw clenched tightly. Are you really that terrified of me taking responsibility? I looked at the floor. The only person you need to take responsibility for is your fiancé, not your ex. Jungkook suddenly exploded, his temper flaring. Selena, back then, I told you to get an abortion. I never said I wanted to break up. You were the one who ended things. You were the one who ghosted me and vanished off the face of the earth. Didn't you always accuse me of trying to solve every problem with money? Well, now I'm trying to give you money, and you're acting like you don't want it. Pushed to his limit, a cruel smirk crossed his face. Besides, we don't even know for sure if the kid is mine. We can talk about a buyout after the DNA test comes back. He glanced over at the pull-out couch where Leo was sleeping. The little boy's face was an exact carbon copy of Jungkook's childhood photos. There wasn't a shadow of a doubt whose child he was. I'll cooperate with the test, I said softly. I pulled a folded spreadsheet from my purse and handed it to him. This is an itemized breakdown of the estimated costs. Education, healthcare, and living expenses until he turns 18. Jungkook didn't take the paper. He just stared at me, his eyes brimming with raw disappointment and anger. Selena, is money literally the only thing you have to say to me? I bit my lip hard. Yes. Because besides money, I had no right to ask for anything else. Jungkook gave a curt nod, turned around, and slammed the door behind him. Late that night, I was sitting on the couch, staring blankly at the wall, when my phone buzzed. A text from Jungkook's number, come to the Four Seasons. Room 402. I stared at it. That's inappropriate, I typed back. A second later, don't you want to talk about the child support buyout? I can cut you a check right now. I hesitated for a long time, but eventually, I agreed. I was desperate. I needed that money wired to the hospital immediately. I assumed we would meet in the hotel lobby, but he had sent a room number. Knowing Jungkook's stubborn, domineering personality, I knew arguing was pointless. Back when we were dating, I had never once won an argument against him. I swallowed my anxiety and took the elevator up. Taking a deep breath, I knocked on the heavy mahogany door. The door swung open, but it wasn't Jungkook. It was Haley. She crossed her arms, a vicious sneer twisting her pretty face. Wow. You actually came. I froze. You took his phone? Sneaking into my fiancé's hotel room in the middle of the night? You really are a piece of work, Selena. You misunderstood. I'm only here to negotiate child support, I said, staying firmly out in the hallway. Haley's face contorted with rage. Misunderstood? You think I'm blind? I saw him shoving that black MX into your hand at the hospital. And that little bastard of yours, you definitely had him just to trap Jungkook, didn't you? I clenched my fist so hard my nails dug into my palms. You have nothing to worry about. I will never ruin your marriage. Haley let out a sharp, ugly laugh. Ruin my marriage? What exactly do you think you're doing right now? I heard your loser husband is half dead in a hospital bed right now. That's the only reason you came crawling back to the States, isn't it? Selena, you're a pathetic slut. You dumped him 5 years ago, and now you think you can just waltz back into his life and beg for handouts? You think he actually wants you? I didn't want to engage with her toxicity anymore. I turned to walk away. But before I could, she lunged forward and grabbed a handful of my hair, yanking me backward. Think you can just leave? Not a chance, bitch. Suddenly, 3 older women emerged from inside the suite. They swarmed me, grabbing my arms, slapping my face, and kicking my shins. You home-wrecking whore. Getting knocked up out of wedlock and trying to seduce my son-in-law, an older woman, Haley's mother, screamed. Take your little baggage and get the hell out of the city. Let me make this clear. Jungkook's money belongs to my daughter and my future grandchild. Don't you dare think you're getting a single cent. Fists and manicured nails rained down on me. The pain was blinding, knocking the wind out of my lungs. I curled into a fetal position on the carpet, throwing my arms over my head to protect myself. In that moment, my mind flashed back to the dark alleyway in London 5 years ago. The exact same helplessness. The exact same suffocating despair. Except this time, Chris wasn't here to save me. Just then, a deafening crash echoed through the hallway as the heavy hotel door was violently kicked entirely off its hinges. Jungkook stood in the doorway, his eyes burning with a murderous, ice-cold fury. Haley, did I, or did I not, warn you to never lay a finger on her? He shoved past the women, practically throwing Haley's mother aside, and dropped to his knees, pulling my bruised, trembling body tightly against his chest. You're going to pay for this, he snarled at Haley. Haley was paralyzed with fear, her face drained of all color. Why you were supposed to be asleep. You really thought I wouldn't notice you slipping Ambien into my drink? I looked up at Jungkook in utter disbelief. This was a man who lived by a rigid, military-grade schedule. He never broke his routine. 5 years ago, I had begged him to hike up a mountain with me at midnight just to watch the sunrise. He flat out refused, saying the lack of sleep would ruin his productivity for the next day's meetings. I cried for hours, accusing him of not loving me. But a few months later, when his schedule cleared up, he secretly rented a glass-walled cabin in the mountains. That night, we lay in bed, and the moment we opened our eyes, we watched the earliest, most breathtaking sunrise over the peaks. Back then, I always complained that he didn't love me enough. That he put his career above everything else. But looking at him now, I finally understood. He had listened to every single word I ever said. He just loved me silently, in his own practical, unspoken way. Jungkook scooped me up effortlessly into his arms. He glared at Haley. I told you not to play your petty little games with me. Since you can't listen, the wedding is off. Haley broke down instantly. She tried to lunge forward to grab his sleeve, but was too terrified of the look in his eyes. Jungkook, no. I'm sorry, I swear I'll never do it again. Please don't cancel the wedding. Jungkook didn't even acknowledge her. He turned on his heel and carried me straight down the hallway. In the ER, the doctor finished cleaning the scratches on my face. Jungkook stood next to my bed, staring at the swelling on my cheek. His tone was reprimanding, but thick with poorly disguised heartache. Did you age 5 years without growing a brain? Do you honestly think I would ever text you to come to a hotel room at midnight? How was I supposed to know? I muttered. You've always been a stubborn dictator. Jungkook let out a heavy, exhausted sigh. He reached out, his fingers hovering just inches from my bruised cheek, but he pulled back before making contact. Does it hurt? Wait here. I'm going to grab something. He came back a few minutes later holding a plastic bag of ice, and 2 hard-boiled eggs from a nearby deli. I looked at the eggs and couldn't help but laugh. I thought you said rolling boiled eggs on bruises was an unscientific old wives' tale? 5 years ago, I had tripped during a college dance rehearsal, spraining my ankle and bruising my face. Jungkook had immediately pressed a freezing ice pack to my cheek, making me wince in pain. I had whined, begging him to use the warm, hard-boiled egg trick my mom used to do. He had practically rolled his eyes, giving me a whole lecture on how cold compresses constrict blood vessels and how my egg theory was pure placebo. Sitting on the edge of my hospital bed, Jungkook quietly peeled the shell off one of the eggs. You've always liked it this way, haven't you? He gently, meticulously rolled the warm egg over the bruised skin on my cheek. I'll take Leo for the next few days while you recover. I immediately stiffened and pulled back, creating distance between us. No. That's inappropriate. Honestly, we shouldn't see each other again. Once the DNA test comes back, just wire the money and we'll clear the ledger. Jungkook's brow furrowed heavily. Now what? If something is bothering you, just say it. Stop overthinking and shutting me out. I looked him dead in the eyes. I'm married. And you have a fiancé. Doing this, it's just wrong. Jungkook let out a low, confident laugh. You think I wouldn't know if you were actually married? With your personality, you would have shouted it from the rooftops. You were the one who always dreamed of having a massive, $1 million wedding. You wanted the entire city to know you were Mrs. John Jungkook. I didn't say anything. I just stared at my lap. Jungkook, it's been 5 years. I'm not that girl anymore. The naive 20-year-old girl who lay in your arms dreaming of fairy tale weddings died a long time ago. She died on that rainy night when you blocked her number. She died shivering on the streets of London. She died during those countless, agonizing nights crying herself to sleep with a newborn baby in her arms. Now, I had gotten married in a quiet courthouse without telling a single soul. Jungkook didn't believe me. The next day, he picked Leo up and brought him back to his luxury penthouse. Standing in the foyer, I watched Leo playing happily with the mountain of toys Jungkook had bought him. My chest felt incredibly heavy. Leo ran up to Jungkook, holding a transformer, and looked up with his big, innocent eyes. Uncle Jungkook, were you and Mommy really good friends? Jungkook crouched down to his level. We were very close. Did Mommy tell you what you're supposed to call me? You should call me Dad. Leo shook his head firmly. Leo already has a daddy. Mommy says I can't call anyone else that. Jungkook just smiled, thinking it was a phase. The DNA test results weren't due for another 2 days, but Jungkook didn't even care anymore. He sat across from me at the kitchen island. I know I was wrong 5 years ago. I didn't take your feelings into account. I was selfish. But the kid is already this big. It's time I stepped up and took responsibility for both of you. I stared at him, stunned. What are you talking about? I'm officially breaking off the engagement with Haley. Selena, let's start over. Please. I looked at him like he had lost his mind. What about her baby? I'll make her get an abortion. He said it without a single flinch. I don't love her. I only got engaged to her because my board of directors pushed for the merger. In my heart, there has only ever been you. I let out a bitter laugh. I laughed so hard tears pricked the corners of my eyes. Jungkook, are you a child? 5 years ago, you threw me out like trash to protect your career. And now, you're going to force another woman to abort her child just so you can have me back. This is different, he insisted. How is it different? I told you I am not here to wreck your family. Jungkook's eyes turned red. But I don't love her. Selena, look me in the eye and tell me you don't feel anything for me anymore. In my heart, there wasn't a single day, not one, where I actually wanted to break up with you. Never. He grabbed my hands across the marble counter, his grip desperate. I lost you for 5 years. Please, Selena, don't leave me again. Okay? Right at that exact second, my cell phone rang. Leo sprinted over to the coffee table, answering it with a bright, overjoyed squeal. Daddy. Hearing that, Jungkook's face went dead pale. Leo excitedly ran over to the coffee table and sat up perfectly straight. His sweet, crisp voice was filled with a bright, innocent joy as he whined affectionately at the screen. Daddy. How are you? Did you eat all your food today? Leo misses you so much. When are you coming home so we can play with my airplane models? Watching Leo's beaming face as he called another man daddy, Jungkook suddenly remembered a memory from 5 years ago. I had stood on my tiptoes, wrapping my arms around his neck while gently resting my hand on my flat stomach. My eyes had sparkled like they held all the stars in the night sky. Jungkook, our baby is going to call you daddy. They're going to have your last name. When he grows up, you have to teach him how to drive, how to ride horses, and take him to see the whole world. Promise? Back then, he had been too busy packing his luggage for his flight to London. He had just impatiently pinched my cheek and brushed me off. I know. Stop distracting me, you're wasting my time. And now, his child was looking at a screen, calling another man daddy. I clenched my fists tightly. See? I wasn't lying. I've been married for a long time. It was as if all the strength had been completely drained from Jungkook's body. He stumbled a step backward. How is that possible? His voice was terrifyingly hoarse. What kind of man would actually let you keep my child? His arrogance was carved into his very bones. He genuinely believed that no man in the world would ever willingly raise another man's kid. Before I could even answer, Leo suddenly screamed. Daddy, what's wrong? My heart plummeted. I lunged forward and grabbed the iPad. Chris? What's happening? Through the speaker, the panicked, frantic voice of an ER nurse echoed in the living room. Mrs. Evans. Your husband just crashed. We're rushing him into emergency surgery right now. The doctor says it's extremely critical. We have to operate immediately, or he won't make it through the night. Also, the hospital billing department requires the surgical deposit to be paid in full within 3 days, or we legally have to stop treatment and transition him to palliative care. I bit my lower lip so hard I tasted blood. Instinctively, I looked up at Jungkook. He was my only lifeline. Chris crashed. He needs the surgery money right now. I threw away every last ounce of my dignity and pride. Jungkook, please, just treat it as a loan. I swear I'll pay you back. I'll write you a promissory note. I'll work myself to the bone for the rest of my life, but I will pay you back every single cent. Jungkook looked down at me, his dark eyes swirling with complex, unreadable emotions. After a long, suffocating silence, he finally spoke, his voice icy. Why should I believe you? He was right. Why should he believe me? We were just two exes who had violently parted ways. 5 years ago, I dumped him. 5 years later, I show up with his kid, demanding $500,000. Anyone in their right mind would think this was an elaborate, premeditated scam. I looked desperately at Leo. The tiny boy was trembling like a leaf, his face covered in terrified tears. I steeled my heart and gritted my teeth. I'll leave Leo with you. You can keep him as collateral. Jungkook, please. Chris really doesn't have time. Selena. Jungkook suddenly exploded. He viciously kicked a heavy mahogany dining chair, sending it crashing to the floor. Do you really love him that much? For him, you're willing to just abandon our son? Leo flinched in terror at the loud crash. But mustering every ounce of courage in his tiny body, he suddenly dropped to his knees right in front of Jungkook. Thud. Uncle Jungkook, please save my daddy, please. Leo sobbed, his small hands clasping together. Leo promises to be so good. I'll massage your back, I'll pour your water, I'll do whatever you want. Just please save my daddy. The sound of his own child's desperate, agonizing cries sliced through Jungkook's chest like a dull knife. His brow furrowed deeply. He stood there in agonizing silence, finally opening his mouth to agree. But right at that exact moment, the front door burst open. Haley stormed into the penthouse. Jungkook, you cannot give her that money. This woman is a total scam artist. Her husband is about to die, and she just wants the cash so she can run off and live a luxury life. Do not let her play you. Jungkook slowly turned to look at her. His eyes were dead and cold. How do you know her husband is dying? Haley froze, her body going completely stiff. A flash of pure panic darted across her eyes. After a few seconds of silence, realizing she was caught, she cracked. She screamed hysterically, "Fine, I admit it. I've been having her investigated for months. We've been together for so long, but you absolutely refused to throw away any of your old trash. That cheap, tarnished cufflink, that old Zippo lighter, that stupid little coffee shop you kept dragging me to even though I hated it. I begged you to take me to the Maldives for our honeymoon, and you said you didn't have time. I asked you to go to concerts with me, and you said they were boring. I knew something was wrong, so I hired a private investigator. That's how I found out about your precious little ex-girlfriend. Everyone told me you were completely obsessed with her." Haley's voice was thick with bitter resentment and grievance. She grabbed Jungkook's arm, tears streaming down her face. "But Jungkook, I am your fiancé now. I'm carrying your baby. Can you please just cut ties with her?" Jungkook didn't answer. His gaze slowly drifted down to Leo, who was still kneeling on the floor. He stared at that tiny face, a face that looked exactly like a carbon copy of his own. The thick, glacial ice in his eyes slowly began to melt. He spoke quietly. "But her child is mine, too." Haley was completely paralyzed. She stared at Leo in sheer disbelief, then looked back at me in horror. "No, that's impossible." Right then, my phone started ringing again. It was the hospital's billing department calling to collect. I stood there utterly helpless, tears streaming down my face. Jungkook didn't hesitate for another second. He snatched his trench coat off the sofa. "I'm going with you." By the time our flight landed in Chicago, it was completely dark. We raced directly from the airport to the hospital. Chris had already been transferred to the surgical ICU. While we were in the air, Jungkook had made a quick phone call to his venture capital partners in the US, wiring the $500,000 deposit directly to the hospital's accounts. The surgery was already underway. Sitting in the waiting room, Leo clung to my hand. His tiny body was shaking uncontrollably, his tears falling like broken pearls. "Mommy, is Daddy going to die?" Leo still wants Daddy to teach him how to fly airplanes. Leo doesn't want to be without a daddy. I held him tight against my chest, kissing the top of his head over and over again. "Don't worry, baby. Daddy is going to be okay. He promised he would watch you grow up. He would never break a promise to you." Standing a few feet away, Jungkook watched how deeply Leo relied on and loved another man. It felt like a massive boulder was crushing his chest, making it impossible to breathe. He walked over and asked, his voice low and heavy, "When exactly did you two get together?" I kept my eyes glued to the glowing red, "In surgery," sign above the ICU doors. I was so bone-tired I could barely speak. "Jungkook, I really don't have the energy for this right now. When he wakes up, I'll tell you whatever you want to know." I paced back and forth in the sterile hallway. Every single minute felt like a grueling century. This suffocating anxiety and terror felt exactly like 5 years ago, when Chris had paced outside the delivery room waiting for me to give birth to Leo. Back then, I had just arrived in London. Between the massive culture shock, the freezing weather, and the agonizing heartbreak of Jungkook blocking me, my body gave out. I went into premature labor at just 7 months. In the delivery room, the doctors tried everything, but Leo was stuck. After hours of agonizing labor, his head finally crowned, but his shoulders got trapped. I was in excruciating pain, bleeding heavily, and my consciousness was fading. Through the haze, I heard the obstetrician yell, "Massive hemorrhage. It's critical. Do we save the mother or the baby?" Just when I thought both Leo and I were going to die on that operating table, Chris had burst into the room. "Save both of them. I don't care how much it costs. Even if it bankrupts me, you save both of them." And he did. Chris had liquidated his meager med student savings and even taken out predatory high-interest loans just to pull Leo and me back from the gates of hell. Over the past few years, we had lived incredibly frugally, saving every penny until we finally paid off all the debt. But just as we could finally breathe, he collapsed. For the longest time, I thought what I felt for Chris was just boundless, overwhelming gratitude. But standing here right now, I finally understood. After 5 years of living together, sharing every meal, and watching him love Leo like his own flesh and blood, his kindness had carved itself into my very bones. How could I not love him? I slowly sank to my knees in the hallway, pressing my palms together as I stared at the ICU doors. Chris, you have to survive. If you pull through this, I swear I'll spend the rest of my life making you the happiest man on earth. The surgery dragged on for over 12 agonizing hours. Jungkook had booked a suite at a nearby luxury hotel and tried to take Leo there to sleep, but the little boy absolutely refused to leave. He stubbornly curled up on the hard plastic waiting room chairs. I have to stay with Daddy. If he wakes up and doesn't see me, he'll be scared. Another hour passed. Finally, the red surgical light flicked off. The lead surgeon walked out, stripping off his surgical cap. The procedure was technically successful, but the patient hasn't passed the critical window yet. The next 48 hours in the ICU will determine everything. The suffocating tension that had gripped my nerves for the past 13 hours finally snapped. My legs completely gave out, and I nearly collapsed onto the linoleum floor. Jungkook's quick reflexes caught me before I hit the ground. He eventually managed to carry an exhausted, sleeping Leo to the hotel. When he came back to the hospital, he was holding a warm deli sandwich and a cup of hot milk. He handed them to me. Eat something. If he wakes up, you won't have the energy to take care of him. I looked at the food, then up at him, and actually let out a weak laugh. You were never this considerate before. Jungkook's eyes flickered. A self-deprecating smirk tugged at the corner of his mouth. Didn't you say I always solve my problems with money? Might as well put it to good use. I took the sandwich and took a small bite. Staring out the hospital window at the pitch-black Chicago skyline, I spoke quietly. 3 weeks after we broke up, I actually flew to London to find you. Jungkook's entire body went rigid. The coffee cup in his hand nearly slipped from his grip. I gave a bitter smile and kept talking. I still had this stupid, naive hope left. I thought we could rely on fate, so I didn't call you before I boarded the plane. But when I landed and tried to call you, I realized you had blocked my number. I had never been to Europe before. I didn't have much cash on me, and I was absolutely terrified. I sat in the airport for hours before I finally found a payphone and tried calling you again. It rang and rang, but no one ever picked up. The emails I sent you just vanished into the void. Eventually, my money ran out. I had nowhere to sleep. The UK border force caught me sleeping in a tube station and told me I was going to be deported. So, holding on to my very last shred of hope, I sat on the pavement outside your corporate office building, just waiting for you to walk out. But instead of you, a gang of local muggers found me first. They shoved me to the ground to steal my bag. My stomach hit the concrete steps. I lay there bleeding, entirely convinced that my baby and I were going to die in the gutter. That was when Chris happened to walk by and saved me. Jungkook's brow furrowed so deeply it looked painful. His knuckles were completely white. Back then, I know. I cut him off. You were throwing a tantrum. You blocked me out of spite, buried yourself in your career, and fully assumed that whenever you were ready, I would just be sitting at home waiting for you. Jungkook, your biggest flaw has always been your absolute arrogance. You always thought the whole world revolved around you. You thought everyone would just freeze in place and wait for you to come back. But you forgot that hearts go cold, and second chances eventually expire. Jungkook's eyes were filled with desperate, agonizing panic. Then what? What happened after that? Before I could answer, an ICU nurse sprinted down the hallway, her face pale. Code blue. The patient is crashing. My heart plunged straight into the abyss. The sandwich slipped from my hands, hitting the floor with a wet smack. I grabbed the nurse's scrubs like a madwoman, my entire body violently shaking. You said the surgery was successful. Why is he crashing? The first 48 hours are the critical danger zone. His vitals just plummeted, we have to open him back up immediately. The nurse shoved past me and sprinted back into the ICU. Watching the red surgical light flick back on, it felt like my entire world was being plunged into an inescapable, suffocating darkness. Jungkook stood silently beside me. He didn't say a word, but he stepped closer, using his tall frame to give me a silent, steadying anchor. Right at that exact moment, Haley burst into the waiting room. Jungkook, you two broke up 5 years ago. Why are you bending over backward for her? She pointed a manicured finger directly at my face. She's just a home-wrecking slut. She came back specifically to seduce you. Jungkook whipped around and violently shoved her back. Enough. I told you the engagement is off. Are you deaf? Haley stumbled back from the force of the shove, bursting into hysterical tears. She lunged forward, wrapping her arms desperately around Jungkook's arm. No, please don't cancel the wedding. Jungkook, I'm begging you. I'll let you stay in contact with her. I'll even accept that you still love her. Just please, don't throw me away. Jungkook looked down at her without a single ounce of pity in his eyes. No. That one word was a guillotine, violently severing the very last thread of Haley's hope. Her expression instantly twisted into something demonic. She whipped around and lunged at me like a rabid animal. You fucking whore. Who told you to come back? It's all your fault. You ruined my entire life. It's been 5 years. Why couldn't you just stay dead? She grabbed a fistful of my hair and violently slammed my head into the concrete wall. Smash. Smash. A blinding, agonizing pain exploded in my skull. My vision blurred, and the edges of the room quickly faded to black. Before I passed out, I heard Jungkook violently rip her off me. What do you mean, 5 years? Those emails she sent me when she was stranded, did you delete them? Haley stammered, terrified. And no, I didn't. Why the hell would you do that? I did it because I loved you. Jungkook, we're supposed to be the perfect power couple. Jungkook dragged her toward the elevators by her arm. You're getting an abortion. Today. No matter how loudly Haley screamed and thrashed, his expression remained colder than ice. When I finally woke up, I was lying in a hospital bed. Jungkook was sitting in the chair next to me, his face completely buried in exhaustion, regret, and profound guilt. Seeing my eyes open, his lips parted. His voice was hoarse and incredibly low. The nurses said, he's not going to make it. I ripped the 4 out of my arm like a madwoman. Ignoring the agonizing throbbing in my head, I stumbled out of bed and practically crawled my way down the hall to the ICU. Chris was lying in the hospital bed. His face was as pale as a sheet of paper, his body wasted away to nothing but skin and bones. Seeing me, he managed a weak, exhausted smile. Selena. I'm so sorry. I ended up being a burden to you and Leo. I shook my head frantically, my tears falling fast and heavy onto his bedsheets. No. Don't say that. You saved us. You gave us a home. Chris, please don't say that, you're going to get better. Chris smiled gently and reached out to stroke my hair. His hand was as cold as ice. It's a shame. I won't get the chance to watch Leo grow up safely with you. He slowly shifted his gaze to Jungkook, who was standing silently in the doorway behind me. Selena, I've always known, you never truly let him go these past 5 years. Since the universe gave you 2 another chance, just let go of me. Go back to him. You deserve someone who can actually take care of you and Leo. I sobbed uncontrollably, shaking my head so hard my vision blurred entirely. Chris, didn't you say you loved me? You have to get better. Once you're healthy, we'll have a real wedding. I'll officially marry you, okay? A look of profound, overwhelming relief and joy washed over Chris's face. He looked at me, his eyes filled with a beautiful, tragic longing. Selena, you're finally willing to accept me? It's just a shame, it's too late. I gripped his freezing hand as tightly as I could. It's not too late. It's not. Chris, stop talking nonsense, you're going to recover. Chris's breathing grew shallower and shallower. He looked at me with his final, dying wish. Selena, can you please, kiss me? Just once. Looking at his pale, fading face and the desperate hope in his eyes, I completely broke down. When you get better, I'll do whatever you want. I leaned down and pressed my lips gently against his. Chris stared at me, the light in his eyes slowly fracturing, until finally, it completely faded away. I clung to his lifeless hand, screaming and sobbing until my throat bled. It was the first time I ever kissed him. And it was the last. The heart monitor flatlined, letting out a sharp, piercing, never-ending beep. He was gone. When Leo found out Chris had died, he locked himself in his bedroom. No matter how much I coaxed or begged, he refused to come out. Through the door, I could hear his muffled, heartbroken sobs. Every time he choked out the word daddy, it shattered my heart into a million pieces. Chris was an orphan. He had no living relatives. His funeral was incredibly quiet and empty. Barely anyone attended. It was just me, Leo, and Jungkook. Jungkook handled absolutely everything. He contacted the funeral home, bought the burial plot, and even personally went to the print shop to develop Chris's memorial portrait. He did every single thing a grieving husband was supposed to do, without a single word of complaint. Over the years, Chris had sacrificed everything for Leo and me. He had adamantly refused to sell our house, always saying that it was our home, and that if anything ever happened to him, Leo and I would at least have a roof over our heads. Now that he was gone, I sold the house. The money from the sale was just enough to repay the $500,000 surgical deposit Jungkook had wired to the hospital. I handed him the cashier's check. This is for the medical bills. We're even. Jungkook didn't take the check. Selena, you and Leo need someone to take care of you. I can be that person. Even if I did need someone, it would never be you. Jungkook, we can never go back to the way things were. Stop hurting the people who actually love you. You can come visit your son whenever you want. But as for you and me, this is the end of the line. I packed up and moved with Leo back to the quiet, sleepy suburban town where Chris had grown up in foster care. It was a peaceful little town, far away from the chaos and noise of the city, filled with fresh air and simple, kind people. Jungkook drove up to visit us every few weeks. He would bring mountains of toys and snacks for Leo, fix the broken hinges on my cabinets, and quietly handle any minor inconveniences in our lives. I heard through the grapevine that Haley had gotten an abortion. Her wedding with Jungkook was permanently cancelled. During one of his visits, Jungkook brought it up himself. Those desperate emails you sent me 5 years ago, she was the one who deleted them. He looked at me, his eyes heavy with deep, lingering guilt. Don't blame yourself for anything. It was my fault for leaving my laptop unlocked. It was my fault for blocking you. Selena, I will wait for you forever. I looked at him and gently shook my head. But I already married Chris. I am his wife. Jungkook didn't say anything else. He just quietly turned around and walked back to his car. Under the golden glow of the setting sun, his silhouette looked incredibly, profoundly lonely. Leo stood beside me, tugging gently on my sleeve. Mommy, why does Uncle Jungkook always come here all by himself, and leave all by himself? I stared out at the fading sunset. Because, baby, Uncle Jungkook is waiting for someone who is never coming back. And I was standing guard for someone who would never truly leave. Rest in peace, Chris. Don't worry about us. I'll take good care of Leo. I'll watch him grow up to be just as kind as you were. I'll tell him every day that he had the most amazing father in the world. A father who loved us enough to give us his entire life. And I will forever be your wife.